Fellas, do you need any more confirmation that Bungie is full of Warlock mains? Look at this thing. Look at what's happening. I have the ability to put down multiple domain expansions one after another. You see, originally, guys, when we saw the new exotic, Rhymecoat Raiment, you see, I played into its exotic perk, Bleak Domain. Essentially, your Bleak Watcher turrets that you create are enhanced with extended range and are surrounded by stasis crystals and a storm. And while standing in the storm, you are granted icicles over time. Now, icicles activate when you fire your weapon, applying slow to targets that they hit. Now, this is a beautiful exotic. It's all about enhancing Stacy. And let me just say, Stacy already put out. And for some time, we thought the only way Stacy could get better was if you had multiple Stacies. Until we obtain Rhymecoat Raiment. This exotic says quality over quantity all day long. But as you can see, it hovers above the ground. It spawns a swirling AoE under it, alongside 4 large stasis crystals that will respawn if shattered. Now, this Stacy is substantially more aggressive, with extended range. And when you stand in the storm, you're granted a stasis soul. Now, it works a bit differently. The first is that there are charges, and you see them right there, indicated by the Bleak Domain buff on your HUD. Or you can actually look at the spikes on the soul itself. Now, these charges are built by standing in the storm. Now, to spin these, you simply just shoot something, and when you do that, you'll see that it consumes a single charge, and then fire an icicle at your target. Now, again, if you are not standing in the storm, you will not have that soul. Matter of fact, if you leave the storm, the soul will not remain. About a second of being outside the AoE, that stasis soul despawns. Originally, when we saw this and we played with it, our thought was, okay, we gotta throw down our Bleak Watcher Stacy enhanced turrets and then hold our ground while inside. And you can still do that. But what we have found is that you don't even want to utilize it in this way, guys. You literally want to treat each one of these Bleak Domains as bombs. You see, every area that these ads spawn, you throw down your Bleak Domain Stacy turrets and you just let it do its thing. Now, you can go over there and sit in if you want, but again, Cabal balls, those drop pods instantly kill you, so I wouldn't recommend sitting in it for too long, but you could put it right where those drop pods drop and everything will instantly become frozen and killed. So the real question is, how can we make as many Stacy turrets as we can to take advantage of Bleak Domain? Here comes our build. Big shout out to Wags, who got the ball rolling on this one. Fellas, with this build, you are going to have multiple Stacy turrets, multiple Bleak Domains on the battlefield. You are going to freeze everything. It's going to last forever. You can dip even inside of the rift to even get that Stasis soul, but there's going to be moments where you have 2, 3, maybe even 4 of these Bleak Domains on the battlefield, which for a game mode like Onslaught, it's disgusting. Now let's walk through the build. First up, again, taking advantage of the exotic Rhymecoat Raiment, which substantially enhances our stasis turret. Secondly, we're rocking max discipline, max resilience, with the rest being sprinkled in strength. Now, surprisingly, the best subclass we found to work here, in my opinion, is actually Prismatic. Now, I know you may be thinking, Cross, what about stasis? What the hell? This is a stasis season. Bungie is really putting a lot of emphasis on stasis. I know. It almost seems wrong to recommend Prismatic, but you're going to understand why in just a moment. We're taking advantage of Healing Grenade, the low cooldown, creating Bleak Watcher turrets. We're also taking advantage of the aspects Feed the Void and, of course, Bleak Watcher. Bleak Watcher for our stasis turrets, Feed the Void because we get Devour. Now, look, Devour is very, very good. Obviously, for the ability to heal yourself in in-game content, it's fantastic for topping off that health and keeping you alive, but it's the secondary benefit that makes Devour so good. While Devour is active, you're not just restoring your health, you're also gaining grenade energy. We're talking 7.5% being refunded on tier 1 enemies, and that goes higher with higher tier enemies being killed. Now, I understand that Devour on Warlock is a bit different with Feed the Void. You see, not only does it grant you more HP than Devour does on other classes, it also grants you more grenade ability energy on kill. So instead of it being 7.5%, it's 15% for tier 1 combatants, 23.2% for tier 2 combatants, capping all the way at 40% for tier 4 combatants. Needless to say, guys, Devour here with Feed the Void is very much worth it for this build. Now, I know you're probably thinking, Cross, you meta hoe. Even in a season like Stasis, you're still rocking Devour. Now, here's what's crazy. You can actually work around this. There are ways to grant yourself Devour outside of being on Prismatic. You could be taking advantage of artifact mods like Power from the Pain. Essentially, rapid final blows against weakened combatants grant you Devour. And this synergizes with a number of different things. Essentially, just get 3 kills against weakened enemies and boom, you've got Devour. Now, even though I'm not using it in this gameplay, I could also be using Bloodline. Bury Bloodline is the Warlord's Ruin exotic weapon. Essentially, multiple final blows with the weapon grant Devour to the wielder. On top of that, while Devour is active, the weapon weakens on hit. So this is another way to grant yourself Devour. The point is, you don't have to use Prismatic, and so I'm going to have 2 dim links down below that are essentially plug-and-go builds for either one of these. I think most of you probably have Prismatic, and to me, that's an easy plug-and-go build. On top of that, considering we have artifact mods like Concussive Reload, we're using a grenade launcher to damage a boss, a champion, or break combatant shields weakens them. That's also another way to dip into that. Synergize artifact mods like Power from the Pain here. Might be a little bit tougher to pull off together, especially in game modes like Onslaught, but again, multiple ways to get Devour. The point is, Devour here on Prismatic with this build is what allows us to get multiple Bleak Watchers going, and therefore multiple Bleak Domains. Now, the melee we relied on to give ourselves Devour was Arcane Needle. Now, there's a couple reasons why we did this. Number one, Arcane Needle, you get multiple of them. If you miss, no problem. You can also apply Unraveling to targets, which is fantastic with our layout of weapons, which we're going to go over in just a moment. But simply just snagging a melee kill here with Arcane Needle, boom, we've got Devour going. Now, as far as Fragments, the fragments we were taking advantage of include Facet of Ruin. This increases the size and damage of the burst when you shatter a stasis crystal or a frozen target. It also has an effect on solar ignitions. Now, we also have Facet of Command, where freezing or suppressing a target reloads your equipped weapons and increases weapon stability, aim assist, as well as airborne effectiveness. The bottom part is the most important part, where defeating frozen or suppressed targets creates a stasis shard or a void breach. Again, some more tie-in synergy there, as when you pick up these stasis shards, you actually grant yourself 10% melee energy back. Now, the other 2 fragments, in my opinion, are a little more flexible. You can go things like Facet of Awakening, where rapidly defeating targets with light or darkness damage, or Super Final Blows generates an elemental pickup. If you want to lean into that a bit more, you could do Facet of Hope, where while you have an elemental buff, your class ability regenerates more quickly. More on that in just a moment. I was taking advantage of Phoenix Dive though, and this essentially always allowed me to have Phoenix Dive ready. And then I have Facet of Solitude, where landing rapid precision hits amidst a severing blast from the targets, and while transcendent, the severing blast is bigger. Just a means of just keeping yourself alive, guys, if you're landing multiple precision hits on a single target. But I will say, you can slot out other things. You could slot out one of these fragments for things like Facet of Balance, where rapidly defeating targets with light damage grants melee energy, but rapidly defeating targets with darkness damage grants grenade energy. Again, looping that grenade energy back in here. Now, this takes us to our weapons. Big shout out to Wags again. I had actually forgotten about this SMG, this Yarovit MG4. This is a stasis submachine gun, and it is beautiful here, guys. This is my role with rewind rounds in Headstone. It's an Amalon weapon. It's in the lightweight frame archetype, and guys, let me just say, it puts out, dude. Really. I was utilizing this alongside my dead Grimir or Grimar. This is a shotgun here that you can get with Volt Shot. I was mainly just using the shotgun with Anti-Barrier Shotgun to take care of champions. And then my heavy weapon is a weapon that needs no introduction, Anarchy. If you want to know a weapon that's going to take full advantage of artifact mods like Concussive Reload, look no further than Anarchy. Anarchy was putting out here, guys. Now, here is the downside to Anarchy, and this is something that we found in our testing here recently. We're going to have a video on artifact mods here soon. Kinetic Impacts, which is a perk there in our final column, which states that sustained damage with a power grenade launcher causes the combatant to emit a shockwave that damages nearby combatants. The shockwave can stun unstoppable champions. For some reason, it does not work with Anarchy, which sucks, man. I don't know if this is an intentional thing from Bungie. I hope they make this change, because this kills the potential here for Anarchy, as I love the idea of placing a couple shots on a heavy target and then just watching the kinetic impacts being proc there while Anarchy continues to do damage over time. Now, Anarchy is still good. Matter of fact, in Onslaught Salvation, it was fantastic for locking down areas, and every time a yellow bar would pop up, it would just melt them. Now, the artifact mods that we were utilizing include Overload SMG to overcharge our SMG here, Anti-Barrier Shotgun, Overload Grenade Launcher to also overcharge our weapon. I was also using Fell the Revenant, which gives us increased damage against Scorn. Rapid Impacts for dealing damage with the Grenade Launcher temporarily increases the reload speed of your GL. Then we have Wind Chill. Wind Chill states that rapid stasis weapon precision hits grants you a stack of Frost Armor. Rapid precision hits from weapons with Dark Aether Reaper origin trait grant you more stacks of Frost Armor. There's also a boost for this, where dealing stasis weapon damage to a slow target has a chance to spawn a stasis shard. So again, more energy here being cycled into your abilities. I was utilizing this alongside our Yarovit SMG. We also have Armor of Aramis, which synergizes into that, which states that while Frost Armor is active, taking critical damage from combatants causes you to emit a freezing burst. And then we have Held the Storm, where shattering stasis crystals releases shards of ice that damages and slows targets. Now there's a boost for this as well, where shattering frozen targets and stasis crystals deals increased damage. We're going to be breaking down these artifact mods in more detail here very, very soon. But all of these things, guys, were synergizing beautifully together. And essentially what happens is, once Devour is active, I'm able to place a bleak domain in each of the spawn locations, and it just continues to lock everything down. Now we need to touch on the armor mods, because these play a big role in this as well. First up, I have stacks on stacks with elemental charge. This allows me to get charge when I pick up those stasis shards. Now the reason why we have stacks on stacks is so that we can get multiple charges in a single pickup. I also rock this alongside a charged up mod. We're taking advantage of 3 grenade kickstart mods. This means that whenever we charge a grenade and we throw it out, we are getting a chunk of our ability energy back for our grenade, which means the follow-up bleak domain that we throw out will be even faster. Now another question is going to pop up. Cross, what is the best super to rock alongside this? Should I go Shadebind? You could. However, I don't feel like that super is very powerful. To be honest, guys, you could literally just run in there with Song of Flame, especially in like the boss damage rooms, and just bully the boss. Literally pop Song of Flame, run in there, place your anarchy shots down, place your bleak domains down, and just go to Pound Town. So again, the super here is pretty flexible. The last artifact mod that I want to include, considering that kinetic impacts doesn't work with anarchy here, guys, I want you to consider Brain Freeze. This is in the final column of our artifact mods, and it reads that frozen combatants become surrounded by chilling fog, which slows combatants that aren't already. Weapons with Dark Ether Reaper origin trait deal more damage to frozen combatants. Now, what this essentially does is that after freezing an enemy, so for instance here with Bleak Domain on a group of enemies, one of them will spawn what is essentially a dust-filled grenade near them, and this will continue to slow enemies nearby and freeze them. Now here's the thing, as long as that first dust field is up, no other dust fields will spawn, and you can combine this with Serve Cold, which states that picking up a stasis shard grants you class ability energy, and picking up a Void Breach grants you melee energy. Essentially here, guys, around 10% energy from each. There's so many ways here, fellas, to dip back into your ability regeneration, but Devour here was the thing that really took this to the next level. Again, dim links down below for either the prismatic version of this build or even the stasis version of this build. I prefer the prismatic because it's plug and go. The stasis version, I'm gonna have to rely on other means to get Devour, which is not necessarily difficult, but not as easy or as on demand. You choose either or. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
Slap that like button like your mama told you right.